This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 358 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Dortmund's 3-1 win against FC Augsburg, the extra time win against SC Paderborn in the German Cup, and we will preview Saturday's match against SC Freiburg. For all that and more joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, I'm very grateful that you were absolutely wrong and Lars and I were completely right with our predictions for the Augsburg match. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. The sun is shining, can't complain. And I, too, am very happy you guys were right and I was wrong, even though it didn't look like that for a while, if I'm perfectly honest. And I'm not very happy when I'm wrong, but there are moments where I'm very happy when I'm wrong. And this was definitely one of those.
So the good news here is that we have another sponsor for this episode.
Wir sind komplett schuldenfrei, wir zahlen keinen einzigen Euro an Zinsen.
And this episode is sponsored by Aldo Medina, who wants to know about potential replacements for Jadon Sancho and other wingers we may have in mind that could reinforce Dortmund on that position. And we'll tackle that question a little bit later down the road. If you want to sponsor an episode, you can go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. In the meantime, Matthias, you were on the road to being right because Andre Hahn scored the opening goal between Dortmund and Augsburg 10 minutes into the game, and Dortmund, who at that point put in a lot of effort to go in front first, looked a little idiotic, I would even say, because that goal fell rather easily. So why, Matthias, were you looking to be correct 10-ish minutes into that game?
Well, it's just kind of, I felt like, we were approaching Groundhog Day. And I felt like I was in that absolutely fantastic Bill Murray movie. Where it's like, Dortmund are huffing and puffing, and it looks a lot like the Mainz game, where Dortmund is just the better team and doesn't get the reward for it. In fact, maybe even loses it. That was just, defensively they were all over the place. The ball fell kindly for Andre Hahn. He did a great job. It was a good finish. I mean, he still had plenty to do. A little surprised, and Ovo Muyela said the same thing, why Akanji didn't come out and challenge him in that moment to shut down the shooting lane, which then tends to rush the shooter. But be that as it may, it happened. And then obviously missing a penalty, and I was like,
Can we go back to the goal? Because first of all, your favorite guy right now, Rafael Guerreiro, why is he running to the goal line to defend that?
I don't know. I mean, I saw him. I mean, I was just happy about the fact that he was even in the defensive third.
I know.
So, I'm like, okay, well, he's there.
Now he's overcompensating after you've harangued him so many times that he's just running as far back as he possibly can.
He was behind the goalkeeper, I think, positionally.
Yes,
on the pitch. But I'm not going to blame him for that one. I mean,
no.
The ball
yes.
should
partially blame.
Partially, he was out of the position where he should have been.
So was Giovanni Reina. Hello, Good morning. You have someone to mark there, and this. I was a bit irritated by Ovo Muyela's analysis. Yes, Akanji should have closed down the shooting lane, but he was sort of the last.
It shouldn't have even gone that far.
Yeah, he was sort of the last thing in the chain of errors that preceded it. I mean, we have to talk about Moret and how easily overrun his right side is right now. Positionally, at right back in the defensive department, he's not covering himself in glory.
He's bad.
There were similar moments in in the Paderborn game, which also not great. And Gio Reyna needs to pay a little bit more attention. And I've talked about this with my good friend Abel Messeros, who pointed out that during the Leipzig game, basically, that there was a lot of micromanagement of Gio Reyna, that like a lot of in-game coaching is sort of spent on him to sort of advise him and direct him into the position and the behavior he needs to show and not show. So, massive room for improvement, I would say. Now, the sad part is obviously, Matthias, that it was in fact not Groundhog Day, because if you've seen the movie, the same thing happens over and over again until it doesn't. And that's because the Bill Murray character learns and Dortmund do not distinctly do that. So, but the good news is
But they did.
Yeah, but there was some improvement. At least they did up winning this game. So, Matthias, first of all, should Erling Haaland take the next penalty? I think there was a question about that at today's news conference before the Freiburg match, because after Royce missed one, now Haaland missed one. I'm very glad that we wouldn't have another second Real Madrid missing goal scene as Dortmund had in the Champions League many decades ago, where they just the goal frame just fell, and Haaland struck that one with lots of energy. But as I said, he clanked the bar. So, Matthias, who's the next to strike penalties? Are we going back to Royce, or because
Nuri Sahin?
Oh God, please. Because Tesic, I think, said there's a clear protocol for that, but I'm not the clear protocol apparently is who feels most up for it, which is in my mind not a clear protocol. But please be my guest.
I think it has to be, on the whole, it has to be Marco Reus. I mean, Holland, I think that was his second penalty, and he's made one, missed one. It's not a good percentage. Just as soon let Marco Reus do it, because Holland, I feel, is always going to try to break the goalkeeper with his shooting, whereas Marco Reus will try to place the ball, which occasionally does help. And the game you reference against Real Madrid, I know that one very well, but I'm old, so we already talked about that many times. It was just funny because I remember when Marco Reus missed that penalty and Twitter exploded with, why is he taking it? Can we finally get Holland? And Holland steps up and misses. I just as soon, I don't know. I don't care. I wouldn't do Jadon Sancho because he'll probably hesitate too long.
No.
I don't know.
He's a good penalty taker.
Yeah, I don't know. I just as soon let Marco Reus do it. And at the end of the day, I'll be honest, I just don't care enough. I remember very distinctly the season, that's why I said Nuri Sahin, where Dortmund couldn't buy a penalty that they could score. But I do believe that was a title-winning season, if my memory serves me correctly.
Correct.
Was it the double season?
I think that was the first championship.
The first one, yeah.
Because then Nuri Sahin left.
Yes. So at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't care. It shouldn't come down to that necessarily in a match where Dortmund were the better team, but it was, it just, when the penalty got missed, I'm like, oh God, it's going to be one of those games. But thankfully, Stefan, they dusted themselves off and they continued with their game plan. They didn't alter it. They didn't get flustered. They didn't get frustrated. The body language was significantly better. It's like they just kept on going. And it helps that Jadon Sancho and Julian Brandt are in very good form right now. Very good form.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what also helps? That set pieces were an element, but this time not for Dortmund. Can you imagine? It was the great one and only Thomas Delaney, who for many is arguably the man of the match. who scored the first goal after 26 minutes. Was sort of a shoulder header thingy, but it went into the net, and I think that was sort of the key to the game, especially since it was only like 15 minutes after Augsburg scored, and even more importantly, just 5 minutes or so after the penalty, which I have to say was a bit unfortunate of a handball. I actually didn't see it until the VAR sort of halted the play. So yeah, very interesting that Dortmund managed to find Thomas Delaney, and with that, you could really see that Augsburg didn't really have too many answers. And I think that's the most positive takeaway from just this game, that other than the goal that Augsburg scored, they didn't really create too many dangerous moments. And we'll talk about the Paderborn game in a second, and there's quite the contrast. I mean, you have a couple of chances very late in the game. I mean, I think Caligiuri had a header like in stoppage time, and Gurezo had a shot, and but otherwise not really much. I think that the total amount of shots was 6, and they only had 1 on target, really. So if you really talk about how the game went, I think the goal by Hahn was pretty much against the run of play, and then Dortmund turning it around almost felt inevitable if you think about it. Now, what I find really interesting now is that Dortmund have been harangued for their lack of chance conversion, and missing a penalty sort of plays into that narrative. But otherwise, I thought Dortmund in this game didn't create too many high-level chances, but the ones they did create, they scored. And I think the Jadon Sancho goal in the 63rd minute epitomizes that Jadon Sancho is pretty much back to form, right? You already mentioned it, but this was a very Jadon Sancho goal to score. First of all, the lob or the pass, whatever you want to call it, by Guerrero into his path was pretty dang good. And then it's quite uncommon for an Augsburg team that very often had up to 8 or 9 men in the box at one given moment, that they would just be completely outpaced by Sancho, who had the ball at his feet, and then took it excellently, just sort of almost passed it into the far corner, past the keeper. I think it's Gikiewicz. So I'm very happy with that goal and that form overall. Matthias, we have spent a lot of time on this podcast worrying about the form of the young Englishman, but now he has turned it around, and with that, Dortmund can rip off the 50% off price tag because he is more or less back to his old form.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried there for a little bit. Obviously when he had that big dip in the first half of the season, and it was looking like, okay, we should have sold him in the summer for 80, 90 million, because there's no way you're going to get 100 and 120 million. Now he's back to his best self. I mean, it's kind of along those lines of, form is temporary, class is timeless, kind of a scenario with him. And given that the, most rumored landing place for him, Manchester United, are competing for a Premier League title, the fact that Liverpool are struggling, and he's definitely a player that can help them, I think this definitely helps the market value for him heading into next summer. But for right now, he's still a Dortmund player, and thankfully so, because he's also working in defensive sense. He's pressing. He is more pressing resistant. I mean, there's no question that he's a better player than Gio Reyna at this point. And I don't think that's a fair comparison, but he's definitely more reliable. Julian Brandt is more reliable. I'll be honest, Marco Reus is more reliable at this point than Gio Reyna, who you talked about before. And the fact that he's being micromanaged isn't overly surprising for a player his age, but it is concerning because obviously Sancho, Reus, Brandt, Hazard, when he comes back, they're not going to micromanage coach him. because they don't have to. Those are complete players in that sense. So it's good that Dortmund do have him now for this season. In retrospect, double retrospect, good not to sell him, keep him around, sell him for the full price in the summer. And then because he probably will leave. I don't think he's going to stick around. But I would say he single-handedly did, not single-handed, that's not fair. He did an incredibly good job in this match. He did a good job again, really in the last few matches. I mean, he has been the most consistently good player along with Thomas Delaney, the Danish dynamite that we have in central midfield.
Yeah. But while we're on a central subject, real quick, do you have any names for me, and more importantly for Aldo Medina, who has asked for some good transfer hints of players that Dortmund could sign for the wing to replace Sancho in the summer? And I know it's a tough question, especially during a pandemic where I personally have even less motivation to watch football than I already have. So I'm not really out there, quote unquote, scouting. So Matthias, since you have nothing else going on in your life, do you have any obvious? Yeah, but do you have any obvious names? Because obviously Dortmund have been linked with Depay and whatnot.
Yes. I would not want Memphis Depay. I'll be perfectly honest. I think his work ethic and attitude is a big question mark for me. I had the name on the tip of my tongue and then it left me. He tore Dortmund apart just recently for Bayer Leverkusen.
So Diaby.
Thank you. That if I would have to pick someone based on recent performances and watching them, even for a side that is struggling for form now, like Leverkusen, I think he would be a fantastic player to bring in, who's a more complete player, who's ready to jump in, because yes, Dortmund have a decent amount of wingers. Let's be honest. They have players that can play in those positions. I think actually Moukoko could do a pretty decent job in there if you wanted him on the pitch at the same time as Holland, given his pace, dribbling, pressing, etc. So, but Torgan Hazard, he's had some injury issues. Reus is not getting younger, as we know. Gio Reyna is just flat out not there yet. I'm sorry, U.S. soccer fan. I'm going to get so much hate again for that because whenever I doubt Gio Reyna, people attack me and think I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do. And it's a fact. Gio Reyna is not a complete player at his age. Shocking. And that's why when I said, his future needs to be thought about, that when I said that, I didn't mean that he needs to leave. It's just Dortmund has to really analyze, can he be the player they want him to be? Because at this point, he's not. But that's okay for his age. Now, Diaby is the one that really jumps to mind. He understands the Bundesliga. He at least can, I don't know if he speaks German or not. I don't know him well enough, but he's in Germany. He understands the pace of the game. He understands the nature of the game. He understands pressing because he is playing for Peter Bosz at Leverkusen. So for me, he could be a pretty good one that also won't break the bank. He won't be cheap, but we're not looking at someone that's probably going to cost 50, 60 million. So that would be one that I would be quite happy to see, especially because other wing-oriented players that could play there that could also play up top, like a Plea or a Thuram. I just don't see them going to Dortmund unless a certain manager goes to Dortmund. So, barring that, I would be all in for Diaby personally.
Well, I think there's also a shot to or case to make for Dortmund just trusting in the work of their chief scout Sven Mislintat, and take a look at Nicolas Gonzalez or Silas Wamangituka from VfB Stuttgart, who, especially in the former, especially Wamangituka right now, I think he's just tearing up the Bundesliga, and he's a right winger, even though he's playing a bit more centrally right now, but it's pretty similar to what Jadon Sancho is, a different player. and Gonzalez as well. But what those guys have going for them is that they're very fast. I don't know if it's Dortmund level quite yet, but if you look at players that are up and coming that are still relatively young, I mean, Wangituka is 21 years old and Gonzalez is 22 years old. And I think they would be in an affordable price range. And I mean, VfB Stuttgart don't have too many arguments, to be entirely honest, when Dortmund waived the big checks. Then, this could be something that Dortmund look at. Also, obviously that would be heartbreaking for Stuttgart, because right now you feel like something is growing there, especially with Pellegrino Matarazzo, who's someone Dortmund could also look at if the things with Marco Rose fall through. But I mean, he has a contract till 2022, so I'm not entirely sure. But these would be, I think, some interesting options from within the Bundesliga right now. But I'm not entirely sure what Michael Zorc has planned, whether he goes for a big name, whether he tries to nurture yet another talent. And I mean, you just talked about Gio Reyna, and I think you're absolutely right in the sense that he is very inconsistent right now, but he has also shown in the past that he can have really, he has a really high ceiling, and Dortmund can obviously trust on him to take another step. And it would be a bit like when Pulisic left, that you then throw Sancho in the mix, or rather when Dembele left, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, but I think we will discuss that subject a little bit more in depth in the future, because Dortmund really do need to be very busy on the transfer market, and I think we will have a lot of discussions about future Dortmund, especially since present Dortmund. It's interesting to talk about Dortmund, but not as interesting as it should be, since the title race is pretty much already over, and you have the cup season going on, and obviously there's the Champions League tie against Sevilla. But in the current form, how Dortmund are presenting themselves, I'm not entirely confident that they will prevail in that matchup. So we will see. But Matthias, I sort of interrupted you from your heaping praise on Thomas Delaney, which obviously I no longer want to stop you from, because he played very well.
Yes, and I'm very happy to point out the fact that I was a Delaney fan from the moment he got to Dortmund, and I'm not saying that facetiously, I mean that honestly. Because remember before he came, I sometimes made the offhand remark, occasionally you just need a player that goes down there and kicks someone. And Dortmund, when Sven Bender left, and really his last season where he was injured so much, Dortmund lost a lot of that. And you need that kind of person, that dynamic player, the guy who can get stuck in. Yes, Emre Can can do that well. Ideally, you don't have in a double pivot two of those players. But Delaney, he does it. I sometimes feel like he has a little more control of his emotions, at least, than Emre Can does on occasion. Sometimes I feel like Emre Can can talk himself into a booking, whereas Delaney can kick himself into a booking. If I'm going to pick one of the other ones, then definitely the physical one. But he's beyond that. He's not just kind of that midfield dynamo, box-to-box guy, full of energy, gets stuck in, because he's not a big guy. I mean, he's not physically imposing, but he does the work that frees up a more creative player next to him, say like a Brandt or a Dahoud or whoever, to be able to play their type of game more. And then on top of that, he is a threat from set pieces, despite the fact that he's not overly tall. I mean, he's not huge, but given his work rate and, he just never gives up. He's one of those players you desperately need in the side, because otherwise, if you would have 11 Guerreros, I'm sorry to say this, you would be losing more because he just gets down on himself. And Delaney, that just never enters his mind. Yes, obviously he's made mistakes. Every player does, but overall they're pretty minimal. And he's also one of those guys. That's why I love seeing him or Can play, because if a fullback decides to not do their job, or a central defender decides, I'm going to try to pick off a pass, but runs completely out of position, a Delaney or a Can somehow still pop up and make a deciding tackle that saves Dortmund's bacon. Ideally, you don't have that happen, but we can't have everything, Stefan.
No,
so
especially this season, I feel like the fullback / wingback situation is quite problematic.
I mean, it's that's why I said Dortmund need to replace both fullback positions.
Yeah.
I didn't say get rid of Guerrero, but I did say replace both fullback positions.
No, definitely you don't have to get rid of Guerrero, but maybe see if there's a warranty tag on Nico Schulz, maybe. I saw today that Inter are in a bit of financial trouble. Maybe we can get some Hakimi guy on the cheap. But no, in all honesty, what I liked about Delaney in this game is that he managed to get away with a couple of tactical fouls. In general, I think Dortmund did this quite cleverly. Augsburg got the ball, but then somehow miraculously there was a sniper and they just fell down before they crossed the halfway line, and that sort of helped Dortmund to disrupt Augsburg's game, which was pretty much just trying to hit Dortmund on a transition, and Dortmund disallowed that, and Edin Terzic said it again today before Freiburg, because they are a big threat on set pieces, that you sort of commit the fouls far away from your own penalty area, and against Augsburg at least Dortmund did this pretty well. So I'm very happy with that. And another thing I wanted to say, after we gave Terzic, I think justifiably, a lot of crap for his sometimes brain dead substitutions, this time bringing on Bellingham for Brandt in the 75th minute, albeit maybe 10 minutes too late in my view. It was a good substitution. Bellingham immediately was involved in setting up the goal that Urukai then scored on behalf of Erling Haaland, because I don't know if it was a shot or a cross into the box, doesn't matter, because the ball in the end was in the net. But Bellingham, I think, won the ball and quickly played it forward, and there was a period of, say, 10-15 minutes, maybe even longer, where especially Julian Brandt invited Augsburg a little bit back into the game, because he sort of lost orientation sometimes where his own teammates were and where opponents were, and just played very some really weird passes that a player in his very central and vital role should never play. And he was also just very easily robbed of the ball, where he just tried to turn around on the ball and, I'm in triple coverage, how could that happen? And then gets his pocket picked. I don't know. Sometimes he has these phases, and then it's a very good circumstance when you have a Jude Bellingham up your sleeve that you can just play, and he immediately makes a big impact, because Jude Bellingham, and I would like to praise Brandt for his first half performance, but Jude Bellingham just brings a whole nother edge to the game. It's like Julian Brandt is a very creative player, but then all of a sudden you bring someone who brings a sharp blade, and even though he's just 17, he gets really stuck in. And for midfielders, especially central midfielders of the opposing team, that's usually a big shift. You don't even need to make a tactical adjustment to completely transform Dortmund's game in midfield with switching Bellingham for Brandt, and it was immediately felt as the goal just adds to that narrative right now. But overall, I'm very glad with it. And obviously, bringing Piszczek on for Morey is also a good move, because Morey was really not that great. But then, bringing on Schulz for Guerrero, I mean, it's a good sub, because you do need to give Guerrero a rest at some point. And then, Matthias, something miraculously happened. Mahmoud Dahoud. It's like seeing a unicorn sparkle in the distance. Made the appearance in the 84th minute for Marco Reus. Matthias, what do you make of the return of the Dahoud?
Well, I mean, fine. You know, I mean, it was at the end of a game that was clearly won because Augsburg just didn't really try that much. I was a little disappointed in them, to be honest. And then, he came on in the next match as well, and I actually thought played pretty well. I mean, that's the weird thing with him this season. As everybody knows, I've been slightly critical of Mahmoud Dahoud, mainly because I expected a lot from him, and that's probably unfair. I mean, judging on what he did at Gladbach when he was very young, I thought, wow, this could be a Gundogan type player, and he shows moments like that, but he's not that. Ilkay Gundogan, I've come to realize, is a generational talent, and that's just a fact.
Not that easily replaced.
No, it's impossible to replace. Impossible, because when he basically replaced Nuri Sahin and upgraded the position, which at that time when he came, no one would have suggested that.
Yes.
He is probably one of the, maybe even the best player for Germany right now. So that, put a lot of pressure on Dahoud. He didn't perform well when he did play, but this season I thought overall he's played very well. And then all of a sudden the door shut on him. And this is through multiple coaches in multiple systems. And obviously, like I've said before, there has to be something there that we from the outside are not privy to as to why Dahoud does not get consistent game time. Because this season, for once, it's not because he hasn't been playing well. He's actually overall been playing quite well. And so there's just something else going on there. I wish for him and for Dortmund that whatever that something else is gets resolved one way or another, whether that means he gets past it and features and builds upon the season he's had when he has played, or you just sell him. I think those are your two options at this point.
Swap him for Neuhaus.
yeah. I mean, why not? But it's great to see that he's back. It's good to see that he actually put in a good performance again, and hopefully they can build upon it because fixture congestion's only getting worse now. So Dortmund definitely need him to play.
Yeah, and I mean, there are not too many midfielders that can play that killer ball that Mahmoud Dahoud plays. Even Julian Brandt sometimes struggles with that, and I think sometimes Brandt, especially when he plays in a central position, he still hesitates too long. It's very unnerving because these are basically the moment where you can play the through ball between the fullback and the center back channel or something like that. These are sort of just snapshot moments, and if you think like a millisecond or take another touch too long, then the chance is often gone. It needs to be timed to perfection, and what I like about Dahoud is that he often does not hesitate, but I just remembered almost like an imaginary highlight reel of Mahmoud Dahoud doing exactly that, so I retract exactly everything I just said. But at least in the Paderborn game, I thought he played well. He played a lot of progressive passes when he played, and that is obviously positive because Dortmund, I think, especially with Witsel being out, need to rotate on that position, and especially without a loss of quality. So having him in good form helps, especially next to Bellingham, who I think has overcome his valley of form, and Delaney right now is playing pretty much at the top of his game, but the problem is obviously with the physicality, and you just likened him to Sven Bender, is that an injury is always around the corner. Same with Emre Can, so it's good to have him in the squad, so I'm always happy if he gets a bit more game time. And Terzic, I think, today revealed also that had the game gone a bit differently, aka Dortmund made scored the third goal against Paderborn, then we probably would have seen Jainier or Mokoko or Tigges or someone else. But that was not to be. So, Matthias, a very interesting game, obviously. After 15 minutes, Dortmund had scored in the form of Emre Can, absolutely lashing the net with a firebolt from, I think, 6 or 7 yards out after another set piece. So I think we can mark this down as a set piece goal. And then Erling Haaland set up Jadon Sancho beautifully. And Sancho, just slotted away, which Haaland, I think, a couple of moments later could not do. So we've already talked about Sancho being back to form. I think that confirms it yet another time. Now, what happened after the 20 minutes and everyone kicking back, relaxing, and thinking, this is going to be a nice drubbing of a mediocre second Bundesliga side Paderborn in a home game, and you would think that I think 7-1 or something would probably repeat itself or something similar. So what happened there, Matthias?
Well, when you're playing against a team that has a coach like Steffen Baumgart, not Baumgartlinger, who likes to play an aggressive style of football, who will not allow his team to ever take it easy or calm down, you are opening the door for them to come back. And especially if you don't use the chances you have. I mean, based over the full 90 plus minutes of football, Dortmund definitely were the deserved winner, but you can't let that happen. I mean, it's frustrating because my opinion, okay, I remember if we do another analogy in American football, people complaining about the Patriots or Alabama running up the score, and my opinion was always, then stop them. There's no reason why you should not throttle Paderborn and end this thing after 45 minutes. Punish them, score 4 or 5 goals, and then it's done. Then you'll have broken their spirit, and they just won't come back. There's no chance. But if you don't do that, if you don't have that killer instinct like a Bayern does have, they'll just keep scoring. Ask Schalke. You allow something like that to come, and you become lax. You become overconfident and complacent. And to then switch that back to a high level of focus, concentration, intensity is very, very hard. I mean, I know how it is for me. If I get my day going and I'm working really hard and then I just kind of chill and I'm like, I'm kind of tired, to then find the motivation again is really difficult. And it's no different in 90 minutes of football when you're not even dealing with just being tired and not wanting to, but there's an opponent who definitely wants to prove that they're there for a reason. So it was entirely aggravating that that level of arrogant complacency was allowed to creep in. And I don't know, Stefan, another term to use other than arrogant complacency.
I think I tweeted out pathetic at some point. But the problem is, if I'm not a Twitter reactionary, what I would say otherwise is that Dortmund didn't all of a sudden stop playing football. I mean, yes, they became more and more complacent. I think that sort of steadily happened, but at the same time, it's not like after the 2-0 they were entirely garbage. And
no, we've seen those games.
Yes, we've seen those games. So there are obviously several shades of gray here, and for a Dortmund performance, a midweek performance against this Paderborn team, it could have been far worse. Now, what I should have mentioned at the outset is obviously that Terzic did make 4 changes. We had Piszczek, Schulz, Can, and Bellingham replace Hummels, Guerrero, Reina, and Reus, and then with that we had a switch to a back 3 because Hummels was out with knee problems, and Akanji and Can Piszczek then formed the back three, and we had Schulz and Morey acting as fullbacks. So this is probably a formation or a setup you probably only can play against Paderborn, because I do not have much confidence in Nico Schulz, and this game sadly underlined it. And Morey, in the 45 minutes he did play, also did very little to change my opinion on him. And Felix Passlack in the second half also didn't really cover himself in glory, especially by causing that this penalty, which was a very unnecessary penalty, but it was the correct call, unfortunately. But yeah, Passlack just a little I don't know, too exuberant there, a bit too committed, I don't know. In Germany, we would just call it ungeschickt, I guess. But yeah, it was very clumsy. With that, then you obviously do not have the greatest build-up play. But Dortmund did create several counter-attacking opportunities, as one expect, because Paderborn were very aggressive. And I was hoping for Dortmund to kill the game off even sooner. I mean, the 2-0 already was a counter-attack. But the one thing that is almost unnerving is that Dortmund just couldn't finish off all the other counterattacks they had. And the problem is that these are very hard to train, because how many routines can you do of counterattacks where you are in full sprint and finish something off? It's something that's obviously down to timing, and sometimes you do better and sometimes you do worse. And in this game, unfortunately, Dortmund didn't do so well. And also at the same time, I want to say kudos to Paderborn, because there were moments in the first half, especially where they pressed Dortmund so high that all that Dortmund did do is pass it back to Hitz, and he would just launch it forward. And then obviously Paderborn would claim that long ball and then attack anew. And attack they did, because they created a lot of really high percentage chances, and Marvin Hitz had to make a lot of really good saves. Matthias, you told me you watched or rewatched the highlights today or the other day. There were a lot of saves, but when we talk about the goal, the first one that Paderborn scored, I still think that Hitz could have done way better there, and there were also a couple of moments where his attempted clearance, like punch clearance or whatever it was, I hope I'm not mixing it up with the Augsburg game now, but I think for people trying to argue that he's a better alternative to Roman Bürki right now, I see the points that are being made, but I'm also not entirely convinced looking at what Marvin Hitz has to offer right now.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry. I find that entire discussion stupid, if I'm perfectly honest. Is Roman Bürki an elite goalkeeper? No, obviously not. He is an extreme form of confidence keeper. When his confidence is high, he's one of the best in the Bundesliga. I mean, he's had a few seasons where his confidence was high, and he was absolutely fantastic. One of the top 3 keepers in the Bundesliga, unquestionably. Obviously, the season of the 2 Petas, he was not. But then again, nobody was. This season, he is not. Then again, nobody was. Or is. And I think that's the pattern right there. You have someone say in Manuel Neuer is going to... he plays well for Germany, even though the rest of Germany is shit. Okay? That's the big difference there. Marvin Hitz is a very good Bundesliga backup keeper.
Arguably the best one.
Arguably the best one. Maybe Sven Ulreich was giving him a run for his money before he went to Hamburg. But I mean, if Hitz is out, if Bürki is out, Hitz comes in. It's not as dramatic a drop in quality as we've had in the past. I mean, hell, I remember the days of Stefan Klose and Teddy de Beer. I mean, if Stefan Klose didn't play, it was like, oh boy. And Teddy de Beer is an absolute club legend, but he was not a great keeper. Marvin Hitz is not as good as Roman Bürki. That discussion is completely asinine in my opinion. Bürki. No, Jan Sommer is the best Swiss keeper, and then it's Bürki, and Marvin Hitz isn't even in the discussion, nor should he be. You talk about Felix Passlack, who I always call the Energizer Bunny, because he always goes, and that's how he plays, and then he makes clumsy mistakes like that. Marvin Hitz is kind of the same way. He's not very graceful in goal. He does the job. He does it well. Is he Dortmund's starting keeper? Please stop. I mean, just stop with that already. Do I believe Dortmund need to upgrade the keeper position? Yes. Do I believe Roman Bürki is having, for him, bad season? Yes. Do I think Roman Bürki gets way too micro-criticized? Yes. More so than a lot of other keepers. But the whole Hitz starting above Bürki, I'm sorry. In my opinion, that would be a bad mistake, and that's not where the blame of issues with Dortmund lie, personally. I
mean, you almost said it. I mean, he gets micro-analyzed, but maybe it sounds silly to say, but I think the goalkeeper position is absolutely a legacy position in Dortmund, in the sense that we had Stefan Klos there, we had Eike Immel there, we had Jens Lehmann,
Roman Weidenfeller. 4 amazing keepers, legendary keepers. But it even goes beyond that. Like you said, Dortmund's legacy, we can't even forget 2 of the most legendary keepers, Hans Tilkowski and Heinz Kwiatkowski. One was a World Cup champion in 1954. The other one was the Germany keeper in the 1960s. So like you said, you want to talk about a legacy position and a club that is known for having top goalkeepers. Dortmund is it. With Bayern, you would arguably say those are the 2 big ones for that. And then, guess maybe Köln. But really, Dortmund and Bayern are the 2 producers of the best German keepers over the last 50 years.
Yeah, and Schalke, of course.
But they never keep them, so they don't count.
Yeah, it's kind of weird if you don't keep your keepers. But that's a subject for another podcast, Matthias. But yeah, it's a real problem for Roman Bürki. But if you look at the statistics this season, his save percentage isn't great. He has yet to save a single Bundesliga penalty. And obviously his decision making in and around the box, especially when he needs to leave his goal, they're not great. I feel like it's very often that opposing goalkeepers are off the line much quicker than Roman Bürki, and for the same aspect, Marvin Hitz. I don't know if that comes down to the goalkeeper coaching style that Dortmund have, if there's a reluctance just by the tactic, or whether they just misjudge certain situations. I don't know, but I think we can talk about in the next few weeks about the several names that Dortmund are linked with. They are linked with players like Onana or other ones, but I don't want to extend this ad absurdum right now, especially since we still have a couple of controversial moments to talk about. So I think the 3-1 that got turned into a 2-2 isn't all that controversial because the foul by Passlack clearly was a foul, and there's not much debate there. He clearly kicked the defender. But then, Matthias, Dortmund did win this 3-2 in the end, and of course that happened in extra time with a goal where I thought it was going to be ruled out because Erling Haaland clearly was offside at the time. At the time, Thomas Delaney played that pass, which I don't think really was directed at Haaland. But in the end, after 5, 6, 7 minutes, I don't even know how long it took for the video referee to review this situation, the goal stood. Matthias, now before I explain what happened and why it did stand, I just want to rant for a tiny second about the fact that me watching this on ESPN3, I think, in real time had zero clue what was going on and what exactly they were looking at. I thought they were just checking the offside, and I thought, okay, this is a pretty clear case, and then the goal stood, and to me, Haaland did look offside, and I thought, okay, maybe he was onside and the angle is just weird for me and they have a better view. But the problem is, before you even learn what happened, is that the DFB is doing a really poor job with the VAR and how it translates. You know, people always say, oh, it's made for a TV audience, so people in the stadium are left out even further. But what really annoys me is that it's really not made for a TV audience right now, because all you see at best is just players standing around and looking at each other while maybe the referee looks at it. So I don't understand, in the time of Twitch and Discord and whatnot, where you can easily share a screen or even Slack and all these apps, that the DFL in this case cannot for some reason muster to share their screens of the VAR. And I would even go as far as share the sound as well. I want to hear what the referees is talking about, and that you can, as a spectator of the game, really understand what they're looking at, especially when things are getting complex and complicated, because that would help so much. And especially if the referee then himself explains the rule afterwards, as it's happening for, I don't know, a decade or however long it's going on in the NFL. You clearly
that's been going on my entire life.
Yeah, see.
So I mean, and that's 150 years. So, and I mean, I completely agree with you, Stefan. You know, the NFL does it well. I love watching rugby union, and there's full transparency. You know, at all times what the referee is thinking and what they are communicating and how they're communicating, what the rule thing is. It's not even that they go there and they explain to the crowd, this is what we did now, like you do in American football. But no, they're just mic'd and you hear them in conversation and they're telling the players what's going on. It's absolutely possible to do it. Now, a lot of players have to clean up their language, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I would love for that to happen. Because I'm not a big fan of that. I coach enough youth sports that's something we need to purge out of sports, is the way that people speak to referees. And I am highly critical of referees, but some of that stuff gets bred in from childhood. But at the same time, to be more transparent is, how should I say this? Not to go overly into like politics and government and all that kind of stuff. But if you perceive a lack of transparency, that means you start to lose trust. And the moment you start to lose trust, you get conspiracy theories, you get people going off the deep end, and then you get things, not comparing Stefan Baumgart to a conspiracy theorist, but you get people like Stefan Baumgart, Jürgen Klopp and so on, losing their shit in post-match interviews because they don't even know exactly what's going on. And that to me is completely unacceptable. If you want to leave the people that are pumping in money, i.e. the viewers, TV audience, in the dark, okay, fine, I don't get it, but that's your prerogative, I guess. But to obviously have a lack of communication with the coaches in important games is completely unacceptable. And that's not just a Bundesliga, DFB Pokal issue. That's in general with how this is being handled in all leagues. And some are even worse than the Bundesliga or the way the DFB is doing it. But I completely agree with you, Stefan. There's no excuse to not be more transparent in a situation like that. They don't have to explain every single offside call. But if a match is stopped for a review, you just say what it is. Just say why, explain it, and everyone goes, oh, okay. And then that speculation and all the bullshit that follows it just goes away.
I mean, so the thing is, the offside rule, I don't know if I want to call it complex, but I mean, the rule that was applied here and why this goal stood even though Haaland was clearly offside is that Svante Ingelsson basically dove for the ball with his outstretched foot. He sort of tipped it, but I mean, I can't really see it on the screen in the in the replay whether there was actual contact or not, but according to the referee, he did touch the ball, and the referee was pretty sure that he did, because he said apparently that he, it made a sound. That's then ruled as a deliberate play, and with that deliberate play, that means Haaland is no longer offside, which, in my view, in this situation, is a bit of BS. I still think that this goal should have not stood. Just from the spirit of the rule, I still think that Haaland was offside there, and if you just sort of, dive for the ball and just slightly poke it, deflect it, I don't know if that's really deliberate play. If you intentionally pass the ball back to your keeper and the striker was offside and intercepts it, yes, I totally understand that this goal should stand. But in this case, from the spirit of the offside rule, I find it a little bit unfair, to be honest, because if you just dive for the ball and somewhat deflect it, that just makes it far easier. And I think there was a similar situation in the Cologne game against Regensburg, where a similar situation did not stand. So it's also very much up to the referee, obviously, to say what's a deliberate play and whatnot. But yeah, this is how the referee ruled, and Dortmund then did win the game, and I think overall deservedly won the game because they were the better team. But I would appreciate some consistency and, as you said, transparency. And with that, I think we can conclude this, because otherwise it's getting completely out of proportion. But the good news for Dortmund is they now are in the quarterfinal of the German Cup, and the other teams that have survived thus far are Werder Bremen, the team that knocked Dortmund out the last 2 years. VfL Wolfsburg, a team that Dortmund knocked out in the cup final, I think it was in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have RB Leipzig, Borussia Mönchengladbach, and then, of course, from the second Bundesliga, we have Holstein Kiel and Jan Regensburg. And then from the fourth tier, we have Rot-Weiß Essen, which is the team that's right now battling for promotion to the third tier against Borussia Dortmund's second team. So, Matthias, the chances of Dortmund winning the cup, or at least making a deep run in this competition, are not too shabby, especially when you could still draw Kiel, Regensburg, or Essen. Now, that all being said, we've bitched and moaned about Dortmund not killing this game off after 90 minutes, or within 90 minutes, rather. If you look at Bayer Leverkusen, it could have gone worse, right? Going out in the cup against a fourth tier side like Essen, even though they're doing pretty well for themselves, pretty more embarrassing. Isn't that right?
Oh, without a doubt. Bayern lost to Kiel, Regensburg, of course, beating Köln. I forget, Fürth got close. Lower tier side Schalke got close against Wolfsburg. So, lower tier sides can sometimes get a little unlucky and sometimes a little lucky in the Pokal. At this stage in the Cup, I'm struggling to remember this many non-Bundesliga sides in it. I'm probably wrong. Someone will let me know, but it just seems a lot, and it's not overly surprising that even the teams, for the most part, that did advance past lower league sides didn't do so easily. It was harder. Essen, I hope Dortmund don't play Essen, because the only reason why is because that's a match I would love for a stadium full of fans to experience, because that's obviously one of those old school matchups, Essen against Dortmund, and that deserves to have fans in the stadium, which obviously will just not happen this season, maybe not even this calendar year. I don't know, but I doubt for this season. So that would be that. And they're running away with the Regionalliga West, but it's the fourth tier, for crying out loud. And right after that match, like Rudi Völler and all the leadership at Leverkusen, like, no, Bosch isn't getting fired. Bosch isn't getting fired. And I was listening to Rasenfunk, and they said that since, I don't know if it was since the winter break or in a similar period of time, ever since Leverkusen lost to Bayern, they have gotten as many points as Hertha. So That's how bad of a run of form. Unfortunately, they only got 4 points. Unfortunately, 3 of them were against Dortmund.
Yeah,
so
I just was going to say that's like the most annoying thing about it is that after they beat Dortmund, I think they went straight back to losing or so. Didn't they lose against Wolfsburg? They certainly did draw against Leipzig in the meantime. So
So I mean, but still, everyone is kind of struggling against lower league sides. And I don't know if it's fixture congestion. I don't know what it is.
Well, either way, Bayern going out against Holstein Kiel is pretty remarkable, considering they're pretty much the best team in the world, or one of the best teams. And then
absolutely
to lose in the way they did against Kiel. I mean, I think in the end it was on penalties, but I do want to say that Kiel deserved to get the equalizer, and that's just pretty cool. And I mean that Leverkusen bow out to Rot-Weiß Essen in extra time, and that was also deservedly so. Is also quite amazing because, as you said, it's a 4th tier side. So that's pretty cool. Now, obviously, I look at the time we've already recorded, and I realize we do not have forever to talk about the Freiburg match. Though, Matthias, that is always a very interesting matchup because every time we're sitting here talking about how good Freiburg are, and I think right now they are in a spectacular form, even though I think they did lose the last game against Wolfsburg, a 3-0 loss, but otherwise they beat Stuttgart recently, they had a draw against Info Freiburg, then they lost against Bayern, but they shellacked Köln, they beat Hoffenheim, and Hertha and Schalke and Bielefeld and whatnot. So I think for a team of their caliber, being 9th in the Bundesliga with 7 wins, 6 draws and 6 losses, it's a pretty amazing season, because the first goal of Freiburg that they usually proclaim is do not under any circumstances get relegated, and even then, that's almost gets softened by them saying they want to be like in the top 20 or so in Germany, which includes the first 2 spots of the 2nd division. So they always calculate with the relegation, but this season they're doing fairly well. Their best goal scorers are Vincenzo Grifo and, of course, Niels Petersen with both 7, and obviously Roland Salai has 5. But the good news for Dortmund is the Hungarian is out, and obviously that's a big blow for them. And otherwise, it's obviously a team, as always, the Freiburg cliché goes, which really is a team. They have really formed a good team spirit. Everyone is fighting for everyone, and if you watch their football, which this season is actually very attractive, I must say, because often they do have success points-wise, but it's not that easy on the eyes. But this season, I do enjoy watching Freiburg. Matthias, is this the time where Christian Streich finally breaks his Dortmund spell? Because thus far, the Black and Yellows pretty much have been his boogie team.
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those matches where Christian Streich maybe goes in and goes, "Oh my God, this is it. We're going to do it now. We're going to beat Dortmund, and it's not going to be lucky. We're going to be the better side. We're going to do it." Yes, we're going to channel our inner Volker
they've scored 12 set pieces goals, which does not bode well for Dortmund.
No, that's not good. I've heard rumors, Stefan, that that's a weakness for Dortmund, but I may be wrong there. So, I mean, obviously, this is going to be a very difficult match for both sides. I mean, there are 2 teams here. I don't think this is a trap game for Dortmund or for Freiburg. I think they're very aware of each other, and I expect this actually to be a really good one, a very intense back and forth battle. That I could see Dortmund, I could see them win, lose, or draw. Yeah, no shit. But in all honesty, it's kind of going to be, I feel like it could be one of those open ones. That being said, if Dortmund get an early goal or 2, I think Freiburg just fall apart like they have in the past.
Yeah,
I think
like
that's
Dortmund did to Paderborn.
Ha ha. Yeah, but I would be shocked if they allow that to happen against Freiburg. But part of it is also Freiburg won't sit back. There will be space, because when Freiburg have played against Dortmund and sat back, they didn't do well in previous seasons. I remember them like pressing high for like 5 or 10 minutes and then them sitting pretty deep, and it seemed like they were uncomfortable with it and Dortmund took them apart. So there will be space there for Dortmund to exploit and utilize their strengths. Again, I hate to harp on it. One of my big concerns are the Dortmund fullbacks. That is clearly the weak point of Dortmund right now. And Christian Streich is a good tactician. He's a very good coach. He's a smart guy. And I would expect him to attack that, play aggressive against Dortmund, disrupt any type of build-up play early on, and try to force turnovers in Dortmund's half. And that has proven to be a successful recipe against Dortmund this season.
I'm not entirely sure whether Mats Hummels will play. I mean, it sounded like it would happen today. I mean, he had knee problems, and it probably was more of a rest than anything else. And I mean, in the cup, you should award a player like Mats Hummels a rest. He absolutely needs it. I'm also glad that Guerrero, even though I think he played the extra time against Paderborn, got a bit of a rest as well. And then, in midfield, I expect Delaney to play again, and maybe Bellingham alongside him. I don't know what Terzic is drawing up, and obviously you absolutely must play Jadon Sancho right now. I don't know if we'll see Julian Brandt back in for Gio Reyna, because Reyna right now is not in the best form. Maybe we'll even see a switch to a 4-3-3 or something like that due to it, so Brandt can play maybe a bit more centrally, and then you have like a front three of Haaland, Reus, and Sancho, something like that. I don't know. There are several options. Maybe Dortmund will also stick with the back three, especially if Hummels is out. Maybe then we'll have that. So there are certainly a lot of aspects, but my biggest headache really is Dortmund's build-up play in this game, and the positions where they are prone to losing the ball, which hurts them. And I think Paderborn have shown it quite well, and teams before Augsburg, because Augsburg didn't really press Dortmund as aggressively as they arguably should have, but Freiburg can absolutely do that, and they can stress opponents. You should keep an eye on Santa Maria, because he, as their number, I don't know if he plays him more of a 6 or an 8, but
he's more advanced. He's more advanced. He'll even slot more into the striker position at times. He's just that good.
Yeah, but he's sort of their star player right now. I think he is the record signing. I think he cost like 15 million or something, and for Freiburg, that's a dimension they have not breached beforehand. And I think he was injured at the beginning, but now he is performing well for Freiburg, and he's slotting in well. So keep an eye on him. But the problem is that Freiburg are also very smart, and Dortmund, when they play their pressing, which is, situational, of course, they know how to play around it. So, I'm not really confident that Dortmund can go to Freiburg with their form that they show right now, in Freiburg's form, that this is going to end well for Dortmund. So after I predicted the 3-1 win for Dortmund, I'm predicting a 2-2 draw this time, because I think that Freiburg are absolutely susceptible to the way Dortmund attack, but I also think that Freiburg have what it takes to score at least 1 or 2 goals against Dortmund, because Dortmund right now are making foolish errors, and if they play well, they still screw up, and if they don't play well, then they are always bound to concede. It's not the old good teams win on bad days sort of saying for Dortmund right now, because if they play mediocre, they usually get instantly punished for it. So, it's going to be an entertaining match. I'm sure of it. Matthias, what are you expecting lineup-wise by the Black and Yellows?
I mean, I'd like to see Bellingham and Delaney, just because I feel like there's going to be a lot of battling centrally, and they could make life hard for Santa Maria. One thought I have is, and I'd be curious to see your opinion on it. What if Can or Piszczek start at right back? I don't want to see Morey play again. I don't think he's a good football player. I think he's not good as a right back. I don't know if he's good at all, to be honest. He can't cross worth a shit. I mean, some of his crosses, they just look painful when he tries to kick it. It's like he's trying to over-slice the ball every time. He always tries to cut inside. I mean, I know we've been critical of Meunier, but God, Moret is making him look like the world's greatest right back at this point, because at least Meunier is a physical presence. His crossing is actually really good with Meunier. I mean, those things come in at pretty good pace. But Moret is just not a good player. I'll be honest. I don't want to see him play for Dortmund again. I think he needs to be sold. It was a fine try of a signing from Barcelona. Maybe you should take it as a hint when Barcelona has no problem letting a guy go, that maybe he's just not that good. And at this point, in my opinion, I'm going to be very harsh on the young man, but in my opinion, he's the worst player for Dortmund. Pushing Nico Schulz for that right now. But it's hard to say with Nico Schulz because he hardly plays.
Yeah, but
for someone who plays a lot, Moret is the worst player on the pitch for Dortmund. Period. I never want to see him play again. Send him wherever you sent Balerdi, because he too was not good enough to play for Dortmund. So, I would much rather see Emre Can play at right back, which he has played. I would rather see a fellow 150-year-old man in Lukasz Piszczek play at right back at this point, because at least you know positionally he's going to be intelligent. Yes, he can get beaten for pace, but then just ask him to not push up quite so high and you have it taken care of. And instead you create your width on the right side with a bit more of a wing play with underlaps from central positions. It's not rocket science, but just don't play Moret. You play Moret, and yeah, I would have a field day with Moret and Guerrero. Guerrero, at least he was rested. Hopefully, positionally, he'll be a little bit more intelligent in this match and try a little harder than he has in previous matches. But, and given that Freiburg have strength on the wings, my fear that I had going into Augsburg is even higher against Freiburg, with the one difference. I didn't think Dortmund would score 3, definitely. It wouldn't score against Augsburg. I thought they would be better defensively. I know Freiburg won't be that great defensively, so I'm going to go with a Dortmund win. I'm going to say 3-2, and it's going to be extraordinarily nervy.
You know, my favorite part about this is that you just pulled a Stefan. That you just said, I'm super interested what you think, and then continues on 2-minute rant. Not even a question mark at the end.
But still, the question is, I mean, would you consider playing Emre Can or Lukasz Piszczek there instead of anybody else you can throw on there, not called Thomas Meunier? And even when Thomas Meunier play, at least you could think about it.
Well, you see, I mean, I've plenty of times said that fullback is a big freaking headache this season, and Mathieu Moret, I think I have to agree with you, even though it's almost kind of heartbreaking, because he's shown a lot of upside and potential and all these things you like to throw around, but maybe you were a bit too harsh. Maybe he needs a bit more time. I mean, he didn't have too many games and he had long injury spells.
Then loan him out.
And for a 20-year-old,
just ship him out.
Yeah. But I'm with you right now, because it is so bad. It's just not up to the level at all. And it's the problem really is not even the linker play or that he's cutting inside or whatnot. That's just the play style of play. Maybe it's what his coaches say. Maybe it's even playing to his strength, because he can play combinations in midfield because he has qualities of a midfielder and he has the technique to do it. But the problem is, it's the basics of a fullback. And I understand it's one of the most complex positions in football, because you have to sort of function as a center back at times, and then you have to function like a winger and everything in between, and it's highly complex. But the problem is, positionally, he just does not read the game, and he leaves the space open that he is tasked to cover. And even though I understand that teams from the second Bundesliga can also play football, and Augsburg can also play football, the problem is if you're easily getting overrun, if you always keep the channel between you and your center back open to play through. It's just not good enough, and he is, like I said, easily overrun. The positioning and I think the reading of the game defensively is a big struggle for him, and on that level, it is not good enough. So I agree. Right now, Dortmund don't have too many fullbacks, but yes, Emre Can can play right back, and maybe he should. And Lukas Piszczek, I think, didn't play too terribly either. I don't know if he has the pace to play as a right back, but since everything is in stopgap territory right now with Meunier out and Michael Zorc not doing a good job to replace Hakimi, let's face it, this is sort of the source of this problem we are discussing right now. I agree. to add a little bit more to your rant, because it's unnerving that Dortmund can get a good fullback to save their life right now, even though we do have Rafael Guerreiro, who on his day is probably one of the best left backs in the world right now. But if you have a fatigued Guerreiro, he's not that. So Matthias, I think that's a good shout. Otherwise, it's going to be a very nervy game, and I hope I don't have to root for this game to end like I was rooting for the Paderborn game to end more than I was rooting for the game to start. That would help, that Dortmund at least make it fun along the way. And the other problem is obviously it's really close and tight at the top of the table, and Dortmund absolutely need those 3 points. And in that context, having to play extra 30 minutes certainly didn't help. I think a 3-2 prediction is a realistic one. I think we will see a couple of goals. So Anyway, time to knock it on the head. I don't want to repeat myself and run in circles. So Matthias, without any further ado, how can people follow you on the Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter under @MatthiasSuk.
Very well. You can find me at Stefan Wutzko. You can find all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. If you want to subscribe to this podcast, do that via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, etc. If you want to contribute financially, then please go to patreon.com/theyellowwall, and at yellowwall.net you can find our written content, and everything else we will discuss after the Freiburg match. Until then, I hope everyone stays safe. As always, thank you for listening. Goodbye.